Welcome to Full and Share Theology. We're your hosts, Justin Mercier and Bruce Pagano, and this is Theology for Everyone. Welcome back to Full and Share Theology. I'm Justin Mercier here with Bruce Pagano, and today we're going to be starting into part one of the book, 3 Commands, written by ours truly, Bruce Pagano. So, welcome, Bruce.
Hey, welcome.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. It's been a good week. Yeah, I mean we had a good weekend, and this is our second episode, which is crazy.
It's awesome. I'm just overcome with excitement for our episode launch here. It's going to be this Thursday where we're recording it this Thursday, and then obviously this going into the Thursday afterwards. So I'm excited to see that launch.
Yeah.
For me, man, my weekend was filled with a lot of physical energy. I played flag football on Sunday morning. We went to a potluck and played with our kids. Were all playing together. And then Sunday night, I helped someone paint 2 of the rooms in their house. And I'll tell you, I respect painters like so much because my body is killing me today after doing that. So
I prefer not to paint.
Oh man.
Well, and we, so I built some bookshelves last summer.
Right. Yeah, which are beautiful, by the way.
Thanks. And I don't build stuff generally speaking.
Yeah.
Because I think that whole measure twice and cut once is a lie.
Yeah.
And I feel like carpenters made that lie up so that you could think that you do it and then you mess it up and have to hire them.
Yeah. Right. There you go.
So, but we started painting it and then realized, I gotta hire someone. One, I hate this, and 2, I'm not good at it, so I need to hire someone. So,
man, I am with you on that. Yeah, even with instructions, I still mess everything up. So, well, good, man. Well, before we get into the episode here, I think it's important that we do talk about some of the current events that are going on.
So I said I had a good week, and generally I did. Nothing. It was pretty laid back. It was pretty easy.
Yeah.
I actually did have to go into work.
On
Friday for the first time in 2 months, legitimately.
How was that?
I sat around and collected library books. Checked them in for 7 hours.
Were you able to wear shorts though, or did you have to
I did. I wore shorts.
Oh, okay.
And a
cool.
t-shirt.
Very good.
But it's the first legitimate day that I went into work.
Yeah.
Anyway, but so I had a decent week in that, but the week in and of itself has just been a really difficult one.
Yeah.
Primarily around just all the stuff that's been going on around the murder of George Floyd and the stuff that's happening in Minneapolis and honestly across the nation in a lot of different cities, riots and protests and just lots of stuff going on. And I don't want to blow past that it's not happening, especially in light of the fact that we're getting ready to talk about God as love.
Yeah.
And as Christians, we have this responsibility. And so just I just want to acknowledge that it's something that's weighed heavy on my heart, and I've been trying to engage in the conversation primarily from a listening point of view, or from a standpoint. And I just want to encourage people to do that, to listen to what's being said, to learn as much as you can. There's a lot of great resources out there and great places to start.
Yeah.
Right now I'm listening to a book on Audible, Martin Luther King's book. I'd have to look, but it's What Now, I think, or Where Do We Go Now? Chaos or Community.
Yeah.
And it it grabs your heart and squeezes it in a lot of different ways. So I just want to encourage people to, especially if you're white, just listen to what's being said.
Yeah.
And learn. As Christians, part of our job is that of a burden bearer. When we're in community, we and I said I wasn't going to say this, but I'm going to say it. we say that we say cast your cares at the feet of Jesus, cast your burdens at the feet of Jesus, and then we sing that we want to be, I want to be your hands, I want to be your feet.
Yeah, right, yeah.
I'll go where you send me.
Yeah.
And we forget that we tell people to cast your burdens at the feet of Jesus. And I'm not saying that we're literally Jesus, but if we're claiming to be his feet, then we should be inviting people to cast their burdens at our feet, so that we might, with Jesus's hands, carry those burdens with them. Because communal cross-bearing is a real thing inside a Christian community.
Yeah.
And Jesus didn't even carry his cross. So when he said pick up your cross and follow him, sometimes that includes helping someone else carry their cross.
Which can be heavy.
Which is absolutely heavy. That's why Jesus didn't carry his own cross.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there's people that will have problems with that theology, but it's in the Bible. Like, he was weak to the point that his humanity was failing him, and he needed someone else to carry his cross up to the top of the hill. So I think it's probably time that we stop and listen and invite people to lay their burdens down and then help them carry them. Because they've carried them for too long by themselves. So I just want to acknowledge that. And
I know, and my wife told me today, it's weighing very heavy on me too. Like, I have a friend of mine who he leads youth in Arizona, and he was just preaching at a church in Arizona, just about being heirs of God, like we're heirs to the richness in the kingdom and that sort of thing. And what I really appreciated, there was one thing that he said in his sermon. And his name is Josh Henry. He's out in Arizona. Amazing. I've known him since high school. He's such an awesome guy. And he said, people are waiting to die to then get the richness of God. But you don't have to die for that. You can have that now. And that includes so many things like carrying each other's burdens, loving on one another, going out of our way to be informed about the African American community, and be educated, that we can go, oh, I don't see it that way. I never did see it that way, but now I'm educated and I can do something about it. So, and this is why, man, I don't know how you wrote this book at such an amazing time right now, because it's like, we're talking about God as love, like, and man, this is a lot of the stuff that we're going to unpack today is what we definitely need. Yeah, is we need to understand this part of it. And
I think, like, just kind of moving forward, I think I mentioned it before. This was the first, like, I wrote the invitation after everything. Yeah. So this was the first thing that I wrote, first chapter that I wrote, and I was in seminary at the time, and it was very heady and very seminarian in its academic in its content. Yeah. And I read it probably 3 years ago, and was just like, what was I thinking? What am I doing? Yeah. And it was so different from the writing that I did in the latter part of the book. I had to go back and kind of reword and rewrite. Yeah. And see. Oh yeah, it's that Corvette guy. Yeah, cool. Sorry if you heard that. I have my window open because it's hot. Anyway, but one of the things that I really wrestled with for most of my life when it came to Christian community in general was understanding what it meant that God is love. And it took a long time for me to kind of wade through the waters of that and write this chapter. But I think it's an important place to start, because if we're going to understand what it means to love each other, right, and to live in Christian community in a way that we get to experience a loving relationship with God, and in a way that we're equipped to love our neighbor, we have to understand what we mean when we say God is love. Absolutely. So,
no, absolutely. And in reading this first chapter, there's so much to unpack in here. And it's some amazing work that you've done in this chapter. And so I'm glad we're diving into it. And so if anyone does read it and is like, oh man, this is a lot, just know that we're going to unpack some of it, but it's worth reading multiple times. And so, of course, I had to instantly hear the head bobbing of Knights of the Roxbury when with What Is Love for this part one. Absolutely loved it. And I definitely love even in this first page. And this is the page 15. I just love this. Genuine love looks like a decision to meet others' needs. Man, that is that hits it right on the head. I mean, when we're seeking other people's needs, that's when things start changing. So, I definitely appreciated that. So leading into this chapter 1, God is love. Obviously, something we've heard many times growing up.
Yep.
And what I appreciate what this is that we're really now unpacking this 3-word sentence: God is love, and it starts with this section of love as an idol, and it kind of goes into this A.W. Tozer section. Maybe you can just give us a brief overview of this.
So if you don't know who A.W. Tozer is, he's a pastor. I think he died in the 60s. So he was preaching, before that, 20 or 30 or 40 years before, 30 or 40 years prior to that.
Yeah.
And a lot of his stuff is like a lot of his sermons, a lot of his writing was well before its time.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff, you can read some of his stuff now and literally think he's writing it about now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I know we have a couple of his books, and they're amazing.
And amazing. Like, the pursuit, and I say it in the book, but the pursuit of God will wreck you indiscriminately. It's such a good book.
Yeah.
And so he makes this point that it's a pretty big chunk of writing, but he makes this point that if we say God is love and we make love capital L like God, that we run the risk of worshiping love, that we run the risk of making love God, and then all of a sudden love becomes the object of our worship.
Yeah.
And he makes a point that we're essentially pulling one characteristic out of God, love, and kind of casting away all his other characteristics, justice, jealousy, his wrath, his gentleness, and casting those off and making this love this one thing, and forgetting everything else, and then love becomes the object of our desire versus God. And he's rightly justified in that fear, like his fear of equating God and love as one thing, one person, is rightly placed. Like, we do it all the time. We make love. I mean, the whole New Age movement,
right?
And I think I quote a number of guys. Like, I even quote Michael Jackson in there, where he makes this point that, like, love is the highest pursuit. If we could just find love, that's it. John Lennon wrote, "All you need is love." Yeah, right. Or the Beatles, and then what's the song that all the celebrities at the beginning of the COVID thing, they did that kind of mashup, like, imagine all the people. Oh yeah. I can't remember the name. That whole thing is about doing away with religion and just loving each other, right?
Right.
And so we've certainly done the thing that Tozer's afraid that we were going to do. But to me, it doesn't undo the truth of that scripture at all. Right. Like, just because we mess it up, and just because we pervert it, and just because we remove God from the picture, doesn't eliminate the truth that love is a person.
Right.
So.
Right. And I noticed that, kind of reading this, I mean, you talk about every Disney movie or musical or politician, it's always like, love is the strongest force in the world. Right. Love is where it's at. Blah, blah, blah. And what we're saying is, well, no, God is the beginning. Love is is what He is. Like, so I think that's
like, everything's done out of it. Yeah, everything is done out of it. Yeah, because it is who He is. Right. And we it's the whole, like, there are elements of light in all lies, like that, truth is presented, or a deception is presented as light.
Yeah.
And so if we can take that truth that God is love and just add an element of that truth, that love is the highest pursuit,
right,
and we can pull it away from God,
right,
then dark has won. You know what I'm saying? Like, if love is the thing that we pursue, and there's nothing at the end of it, because let's be honest, every Disney movie, like, they're continually pursuing love.
Right.
They might grab it for a minute, but there's always a sequel.
Yeah, right.
There's always a sequel.
Yeah.
And that's that's what makes money. That's the box office, right there.
Exactly. So, yeah. And so I just thought, man, it was some really it was really amazing, like, to think about that. Like, wow, that's a lot of times what we try to do is really, if we can pull God out, and this is like society a lot of times, like, if we can go pull God out of it, and then just take all the good stuff and then just turn it into, like, oh yeah, this is why it's all good. We don't need God. We can just, it's like, you want the cake and the frosting. How does that saying go? You want
your cake and to eat it too.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Which I never understood that, because I do want my cake and I want to eat it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, man. And then going right into, now we've kind of talked about, okay, God is, as far as the idol side of it. Now we're going into love as a verb. Right. And I really appreciated this. And you have a section here that talked about this relationship between you and your ex-wife, which is, a very personal story here for you. When we talk about love as a verb, love as an action, when we talk about your book here, what was done wrong in that, like, where love was no longer a verb but was something else?
So in this section, I think I put it out there that love as a verb is not a wrong thing. Mm-hmm. It's an important thing. Bob Goff has a book called Love Does, and it's a great book, and it's true. Love does.
Yeah.
Love moves, and I think for most of my life I've been like, love is a verb, because love as a feeling is really just a collection of feelings. Like, there is no singular love feeling. There's a love chemical, oxytocin, makes you feel connected, but even that brings with it these other feelings, and really love in and of itself is a collection of, like, admiration and adoration and connection and contentment. Like, there's all these things, all these feelings that are wrapped up in us when we feel loved,
right,
or when we feel loving.
Yeah, that we're always chasing that feeling.
Right.
We're always chasing that next high of the oxytocin.
Right. And we've made love a feeling. That's why we can say, like, I just don't love you anymore, or I've fallen out of love with you. And really, that's just an excuse to not have to be with that person anymore. Yeah. Is really what that is. Like, maybe you don't feel the same way, but also what you're saying is, I don't want to do the same things that love would have me do.
Right.
Like, I don't want to act the same way. I don't want to do things that are loving toward you anymore. Right. And that's what you're saying. So it's probably harsher, but just say that. Like, I don't want to do the things that love does to you anymore. So,
yeah, right.
I'm out. It'll suck, but at least it's honest.
Yeah.
And so for me, in my previous marriage, it was not most of the time our engagement with each other was, at least from my point of view, I'm not speaking for her.
Yeah.
From my point of view, was from a place of selfishness, not love, because it wasn't about doing things for each other. Yeah. It was about manipulation. And it was kind of a quid pro quo, tit for tat. Like, if I do this thing for you, my expectation is that you'll do this thing back, and if you don't, then I can act a certain way, or withhold certain things, or not do certain things anymore. Yeah. And so it was not. It was a relationship built on reciprocal service to each other,
Yeah.
but not from a place of love and
Yeah.
service. It was from a place of selfishness and manipulation,
Mhm.
because we were looking to get our needs met,
Yeah.
not meet the needs of the other person in the relationship. And that's where the whole like thing comes in, where love is the desire to serve someone,
Right.
and doing it and then serving them, and it wasn't that. And it was that kind of took me down the road to, okay, so what does it mean that love is a verb? What does it mean that love does certain things?
Mm-hmm.
If that's our definition, is it only that? Is it only, okay, I'm gonna do this thing for you, um, because I love you, and your heart has to have certain, what's the word I'm looking
Yeah.
for?
Like almost like a butterfly effect kind of thing.
Kinda.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Like if you don't continue to keep me all high in love, then
right.
Yeah.
And you know, like, what was your intent in doing it?
Yeah.
So I was going to National Community Church. It's in the DC area.
Yeah.
Mark Batterson's the pastor. He's
Yeah.
We were living there, and he's an amazing speaker and great pastor. Fantastic writer. But one of the guys that would preach pretty routinely is this guy named Dick Foth. And he's often, Mark Batterson would say, well, actually, I think it's Dr. Batterson now. He has a doctorate from Regent University, which is awesome. But he would say, he called him his father in the faith, and he was a father in the faith in that house, and prior university president, author, pastor, like rubs elbows with senators and all these people, like goes to prayer meetings and prays with.
So this is a well-known guy.
Legit dude.
Yeah.
But just cares about people.
Mm-hmm.
Just cares about people. Like, he loves people well. And he was preaching on love. And he said, he you know, outwardly was like, I don't remember where this came from. I didn't make this up. Mm. But this is the definition that I've always gone by. And he says that love is the accurate estimate and the adequate supply of another person's need. And that's the definition that he gave that day back in 2015 when he was preaching. Wow. And immediately I was like, love is a verb. Love's a verb. Like that definition is more is far more all encompassing for what it means of what love is.
Right.
And it's completely other focused.
Yeah.
It's completely focused on other, not me.
Yeah.
So it took away that what is the intent of my heart question, and answers it in the intent of my heart is I see a need.
Right.
Because and the accurate estimation is I'm involved in your life. And so I have the ability and knowledge to accurately estimate your need.
Right.
So if we're in a relationship together and I know you need new tires.
Yeah.
And winter's coming. Not like the
game. Like Game of Thrones, yeah.
But literally winter's coming and you can't drive that car.
Yeah.
I adequately supply for that need by getting you tires.
Yeah.
Because I love you.
Right.
And that's it.
Not because you expect them to, in the springtime, buy you something else.
Right.
Yeah.
And so he said that, and I think I went home and I had written it down, and I think I typed it in my iPhone actually, and I got home and I kind of mulled it over and read it a number of times and wrote it down and went to my computer and typed it into my manuscript and at the time wasn't sure exactly where it went, but I wrote it. The last page of my manuscript was just like belongs somewhere, and it was just all these like thoughts and quotes and stuff. And you know, by some of them I might have had typed like maybe chapter 4. I don't know. And this was one of those. And then I wrote next to it, I might add the words without expectation.
Mm. Yeah.
And that was it. Like I sat back kind of and read it over and over the accurate estimate and the adequate supply of another person's need without expectation.
Right.
Oh man, like that is love.
Right.
When we're talking about love is a verb, love as a verb, that is love.
Right.
So that is literally the premise for this entire book, is that sentence, that definition. When we talk about loving God, when we talk about loving each other, when we talk about God loving us, when we talk about loving our neighbor, it's that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I'm also thinking that this goes perfectly what we were kind of talking about in Ephesians about submitting to one another, not only in a marriage context, right? But could that be? I mean, literally, could this be the new? And I mean this as an action. Could this be the new thing that we put on our church walls that goes, you know what? We're done with, go serve the homeless or go serve the people or whatever, and then we just never do it. We actually put this on the wall and we go, no, we're going to love people without expecting anything back.
Right.
Could this be the next thing? And how can we apply this into what we're seeing right now?
Right. Yeah. Oh man, that's a weighty question.
It's a big question. I don't know how much time you have.
No. No, but I think you're right. Like, it gets down to that point where not that I'm going to say this.
Yeah.
I know that we don't do outreach projects with an expectation that people pay us back. Like, whatever church you're a part of, I understand. I am there. I've been there. And I'm not saying that there's this ulterior motive.
Yeah.
But we do hope that they come to our church.
Right.
We do hope that, and I use hope kind of like, hope's a good thing.
Yeah.
But I've been in church in conversations with Christians that was just like, man, like all the time we put into that event, and I only saw like 4 people show up on Sunday after that event on Saturday.
Right. Yeah.
And so they would never say it out loud, but what they're communicating, the expectation in their heart is, I did this thing for you.
Right.
I kind of expected that you would come and check out our church.
Right.
And maybe become a member and stay. And the intent there might be good. The hope, like, I hope you come and check out our church.
Yeah.
Or a church. Any church.
Right.
And come into the kingdom.
Yeah.
Of a loving king. That's different than the expectation that they would come check out your church and stay and become a tithing member and blah, 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 blah.
And,
you know what I'm saying?
And that's interesting because obviously, not, if people want to say, oh yeah, our church put this thing on and they want to put their name on it, that's totally cool if that's what you want to do. But it's like, when does a church say, hey, we're going to go and we're going to feed all the healthcare workers? And when they're like, oh, like, who are you guys a part of? Oh, we just love Jesus.
Right.
Not like, oh, we go to so-and-so church. Come check out our church. We're online, 10 a.m., like, blah, blah. Hey, we have a Facebook page. It's like, what if we just say, you know what? Yeah, we all go to this one community, but we're not doing this as part of the community that we're part of. We're just doing this in the name of Jesus.
Right. Yeah. The whole, was that the don't let the right hand know.
The left hand in. Yeah. And
what if that was the premise?
Yeah, right.
Sometimes.
But, I mean, and I think that's the... and does that take away when you say, I'm doing this in the name of this church? Does that take away from the ability to give God the praise?
Right.
Versus, oh no, our church did that. Like, just so you know, your free meals that we give, our church did.
What does Jesus say about that?
Yeah.
Jesus says, you've received your reward.
Yeah.
Like, when you give and you seek the praise of man, you've received your reward.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And how often do we do that?
Yeah. And you don't seek the praise of man,
yeah.
Your Father has a reward for you in heaven far beyond what you'll experience here.
Yeah. No, I'm with you.
Much greater. And so there is something to that. And I'm not saying you don't... I don't know what I'm saying. I should probably stop while I'm ahead.
No, I get it though. But I mean, how easy is that right now, especially with our social medias?
Sure.
To be like, film ourselves being like, yeah, I'm going to go serve my neighbor. I'm bringing him, her, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, I've seen people like selfies handing a dude a bag of food like,
yeah. Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Humble brag. There you go. Like,
yeah. But it's in the times that we like go in and we serve people that no one knows about, or only a select few people know about.
Right. And how much more so in your community when you're with a group of 15, 20 people that you're doing life with, and not the buzzword doing life, like legitimately in each other's lives, and you know what's going on, and you see each other on a regular basis, and you pray for each other, and you meet each other's needs, and then you meet the need of someone in that community. And there's no expectation, and there's no publicity, and maybe even other members of the group don't know.
Right.
But you meet that need.
Yeah.
How much more is God glorified in that?
Yeah.
You know. So.
No, that's very good, and I think that this kind of gets us into this this next section about the essence and the identity part of God, the love as the essence of God. The funny story I have is this doesn't have really much to do with this, but but one of the things that, and I told my wife I was going to say this.
So she gave you permission.
She gave me permission. One of the things that she loves at Sonic, that she's been getting, Sonic the fast food place, is, and this only happens once in a while, is we'll get this thing called, we called it the ultimate tots or something like that. It's now called something else, but what it is that it's like, you know, the tots and the cheese and the onions, all that kind of stuff, but they put jalapeno in it. Mm-hmm. And my wife says, I love the essence of the jalapeno on the food. I just don't like to eat the jalapeno itself. And so what she'll do is she'll push all the jalapenos aside, and then she'll eat the rest of the food, because she's like, I love the essence of it. I just don't like jalapeno.
The actual jalapeno.
And I'm like, I don't understand that. It's like, wait, you like the taste of jalapeno, but you don't like the taste of jalapeno itself. You know, like if you give me her,
you don't like to like eat the jalapeno.
Yes, and I just thought it was so funny because
do you like the idea of jalapeno?
I'm kind of exactly, and so I'm kind of.
Do you remember when the Ultimate Tots? Because I used to get the Ultimate Tots.
Yeah,
they used to have ranch on it.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
They used to have like chili and ranch and cheese
and onion. Yeah, all that.
And then they stopped.
So that's the thing, is I think that's exactly what I'm talking about, because they had stopped, and then we would go and we'd be like, we want the ultimate, you know, tots or whatever it was called. And they would sit, you go like, oh, we don't know what that is. I'm like, oh no, you do know what it is. I will make it myself. My wife wants this.
I know you have a secret menu.
Yes, exactly. But I'm kind of the same way with coconut. I don't like coconut shavings, but if you make me something with coconut in it, I'll
eat it.
But I don't like shavings.
So it's like LaCroix.
Oh yeah,
LaCroix. Yeah, has the essence
of
whatever fruit.
Yeah, right.
Which is just like, like there's all, like, you can go and Google like descriptions for LaCroix, and there's all these tweets that are just ridiculous descriptions. It's like, if a strawberry burped in your face, that's what a LaCroix is. My wife's favorite one is LaCroix is like a dystopian novel where taste is not allowed anymore. Oh,
that's a good one. I really like that.
So that's essence.
Yes, that's essence. So now so this is on page 22, just for the people who do have the book. If you don't have the book, of course you want to make sure you go pick it up anywhere but Walmart grocery. I don't know. I don't know. Can you get Walmart grocery?
Not in the physical store, but online. Yeah,
you probably pay.
You might be able to do the. No, you can't do pickup because it's not in the store.
Yeah, that's true. So this section says, and I'll just read this because I think it's really good. There is no Greek article to love but to God. Therefore, we cannot translate love as God. God is fundamentally and essentially love. Not merely is loving, for then John's argument would not stand. For the conclusion of the premise then would be this. This is a man not loving. God is loving. And then it just kind of goes on to, God is essentially love. Therefore, he knows not God. Emphasis added.
Talking about the guy, like,
yes.
If the guy doesn't know God, or if the guy's doesn't know love, because God is essentially love, then the guy does not know God.
Yeah. So I really, and this is some really good deep stuff. So I want to go over that part of it, and then going into that identity and essence of God. So give us a little bit.
Yeah. So that was some Bible commenters back in the
1871. Yeah, which that's a long time ago.
And so they're making the point that there's not the way that it would have been said in the Greek is not God is loving.
Mm.
It only could have been God is love.
Mm.
So it couldn't have been God to love, or God is loving. And they're just making the point that because God is love, God is essentially love, that for a man to not be loving is not the same as God not being loving. And for a man to not love, then that is a man that doesn't know God, because God is love. And so that's the point that they're making.
And tell us this, just for, like for me, like I don't have the educational background to the Bible. Why is Greek so important? We talk about this all the time. I mean, you're talking about the Greek word for this, the Greek for that.
I'm not a Greek scholar.
Sure.
I
didn't see that.
I actually withdrew from my Greek class while I was in my MDiv.
Did you? Oh man, now
no. Because I changed my direction of my degree. I was going for an MDiv and was in Greek, and then kind of the first 2 weeks of the semester, we were moving. I decided to go towards counseling, and Greek's not necessary in counseling, so I wasn't going to get my PhD in theology at that point, which I could have been a real theologian instead of Foley theologian, but whatever. So I'm not qualified to answer that, except that it was the language at the time. Like it was, I do know from just some of the work that I've done. I'm pointing over to my bookshelf over there.
Yeah.
Biblical Greek Survival Kit and the history or the basics of Biblical Greek.
And those are the things you want to take on Desert Island. Those, especially the survival one.
Kit. Then you know what the articles are. Yeah. And then you'll starve to death. But it was the language that was spoken then. Jesus spoke. The letters were written in it. And the translation, there are very specific articles and meanings, and so for us to translate them for whatever fits versus how it would actually have been written and said in context, understanding Greek matters. So there's a couple times that I break down Greek words in the book, and I'm only giving it from a contextual standpoint, not from a grammatical. So I'm trying to do a little bit better scholarship than just this is what this Greek word means, so it has to mean this. And trying to really, it's called exegete, where you pull the text out and you don't put your own stuff into it. Kind of on a simple, but so when it comes to that stuff, it matters how we interpret it, and if we don't know Greek and we don't understand that stuff, then we go to people that do. There's we don't have an excuse nowadays, because there's so much commentary and so much scholarly stuff written. You just have to go look for it. Google it. Go to Google Scholar and Google it. Buy the books. Read people that are learned. So
this is what makes this so important, because when we talk about when it's written, like you said in this Greek language, God is love, not God is loving, was loving, that sort of thing. God is love. It kind of changes the intensity with that.
And even I have a buddy that does have a doctorate, and he does do linguistic translation for Wycliffe, and his doctorate's in, I don't even know, it's linguistic something, but
something really long.
He's translating Quran and he's translating the Bible, and he's cross-referencing the Abrahamic stuff. And he told me, we were talking one day, and he said in the Hebrew there's no future tense.
That's right. That's
And we
right.
talked about
We
that.
talked about that. Yeah.
Which I don't know all the ins and outs of that, but essentially what it was saying was, while he was kind of going through his studies, that when prophets would give prophecy, they weren't speaking in a future tense; they were speaking in a present tense. And so when he said, like when we read, "You will be exiled," what they're saying is you're exiled, even though they're in Jerusalem still,
right?
And they haven't gone to Babylon yet. They're still exiled. And it's that point at which, kind of what he explained to me was, when God says it, it's true. Even though it hasn't happened yet chronologically, he said it. It's true. There is no future tense. There's a past tense in Hebrew, in Old Hebrew, and there's a present tense, and that's it. So when he says, "I will rescue you out of your exile," he's saying, "I've rescued you out of your exile."
Yeah.
Like you're being rescued out of your exile. 70 years.
Yeah,
you know
right.
What I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's so prevalent, especially in I'm going through the Old Testament. Right. That's so prevalent where like God gives a promise, and then there's like a 20, 30, 40, 50 year gap,
whatever,
and then it happens. In the meantime, though, we, and I mean like humans, we just go, "Oh God, you're taking too long, so I'm gonna go ahead and try to fix it myself." Right. And that's where we're like,
and we miss that when God says it, it's true.
Yeah, right. And so that's where we get things.
Which should change the way we pray, and should change the way we look at prophecy, and should change the way we read the Bible.
I mean, 100%. I mean, we're like, Lord, like you've spoken to us, and that you said this is going to happen. It's like I'm 30 years old. What if that happens when I'm 50 or 60? It's like
still true.
It's still true.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we just got to be patient enough and learn from the Word of God that goes. Sometimes God's promises are not like instant for us; they're instant for Him because there's no time. They're like He said it. But we need to be the ones that are patient. So,
so you want to get into essence and identity real quick?
Yeah. So this on the bottom of 22, identity, the distinguishing character or personality of an individual, and essence, the intrinsic nature or indispensable quality of something, especially something abstract, and determines its character. So, yeah, give us a little bit of the identity and essence.
Yeah. So for me, and they sound really close, but I think that the difference is nuanced, and it has to be understood that there is a difference.
Yeah.
I think that there's multiple definitions of essence, but for me, the idea that God is love was such an abstract thing that understanding that or not understanding it because it was so abstract really affected for me personally, and people I've talked to, their ability to understand what it means to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. So if there's this abstract idea that is God, this real person that is God, but we can't see him, we can't touch him, we can't taste him, we can't smell him. Yeah. We're not with him physically, and there's this abstract nature to him. How then do I love something or someone that I can't see, touch, smell, feel? And it really impacted that. And so when we get to identity versus essence, what we're talking about are characteristics of versus the core inseparable quality that makes up the very substance of that abstract thing.
Yeah.
Versus characteristics that distinguish you. Like God is a jealous God.
Yeah.
The Bible says he's a jealous God, but he's not jealousy.
Yeah, God is not jealous. Or the guy isn't saying God is jealousy.
Right.
Yeah.
He's a jealous God. God is a just God, but he's not justice. God is not justice. He's a just God. And so those are characteristics of God.
Same thing with wrath. You were talking about
God is a God of wrath, a wrathful God, but he's not wrath.
Right.
Those are characteristics of God.
Yeah.
Driven by his essence. Driven by his very substance. So every characteristic of God is built out of the very thing that he's made up of. The very substance that's inseparable from God as God.
Yeah.
God as spirit.
Yeah.
And so God's love, God as love drives his jealousy for us. God as love drives his justice. God as love drives his gentleness. God as love drives his desire to draw close. So God as love drives his his personability, like his ability to be a personal God.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the difference. Like, you can separate God from jealousy and wrath and still see God.
Yeah.
You can't separate God from love and still see God.
That's a big point.
Right.
Because, and most people do get, and I say this loosely, a lot of people get hung up on the Old Testament view of God. He's wrathful. He's sending all these things. He's, and it's like.
Do I talk about that in chapter 1? I don't remember. I do eventually.
I don't think you said in.
But go on.
Yeah,
finish that thought.
But yeah, I mean, and that's a lot of times we get stuck with like, what? He opened the earth and swallowed these people?
Right.
Man, he must not be the God for me. It's like, there was a reason, and God is loving through that.
And what do we do? Like, we look at the Old Testament, we're like, oh, angry, wrathful God.
Yeah. His
Angsty,
anger is kindled. It says that.
Teenager, Jesus, like, they're smiting people and just angry. And then we get to the New Testament, and we're like, oh, hippie loving Jesus. Like, God, for some reason, God's calmed down after 400 years.
Yeah, he's not mad anymore.
Not saying anything.
Yeah.
I love that conversation, because the whole of the Old Testament is come back to me and be my people. I'll be your God. You will be my people. I will care for you and I will love you and I will take care of you. I'll provide everything for you. Come back to me. Yeah. And the most vicious act of wrath is actually in the New Testament. Yeah. And it's Jesus on the cross.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's not, like, there's not this duplicit view of God. Like, God's not duplicit in his character in the Old Testament and the New Testament. He's the same. He's unchanging. And the wrath we see that swallows the people in Numbers, right, when he opens the ground, is the same wrath that we see more so at the cross, right, that opens the ground and swallows all of sin. You know what I'm saying? So, right. And throughout the entirety of the Bible, it's come back to me. One of my favorite books is the Book of Hosea. Oh yeah, but like I love. Yeah. It's such a horrible story. Yeah, such a horrible story. If you're not familiar, God tells a prophet to marry a prostitute. Yeah, they have kids together. Some of them probably aren't even his kids. Yeah, because they name these kids things that you shouldn't ever name your kids, like not God's people, God's not promised by God. Horrible names. Yeah. And over, God's like, the wife leaves to go back to her life of prostitution, and God tells him, "Go get her, make her your wife again. Yeah, go get her, make her your wife again. And what you do with her, I will do with my people. Yeah, and what you do with her, I will continue to do with my people. As many times as you've done it, I will do it more." And he's saying, no matter how much you stray, I will come back and love you. And maybe that makes God a sucker, or maybe it makes God love. Yeah. You know?
No, I'm with you. And well, I think I might have told you this, but the thing is that a lot of times, especially when we talk about Numbers and the people are just like angering God multiple times, you'll see Moses falls on his face and cries out to the Lord, and so you'll know who Moses is in heaven with the flat nose. He's the one who keeps falling on his face over and over.
Except for the time he strikes a rock because he's so angry.
It's true. Yeah.
And that cost him.
Oh yeah, big time. That cost him the promise. Yeah. So then going into the very ending of this chapter, love spelled G-O-D. Mm-hmm. Just as I loved you, you must also love one another. Same thing on page 25. For God loved the world in this way: He gave His one and only Son, so that everyone who believes in Him will not perish but have eternal life. So tell me about love is spelled G-O-D.
Yeah, so I think what I was getting at there is this idea that we can't just say it anymore. Yeah. And view love from this place of inaction. Yeah. We have to we have to look at God.
Yeah.
And I say it later. Maybe I said it in the invitation, but it's less of what would Jesus do and more of a what did Jesus do. So we have to look at, okay, how does love as the very thing that makes up God translate to action? And so it's not enough to, I think I've heard before I think why I named this section that was people were like, love is, or I think they were like, love is a verb and it's spelled DOES or something like that.
I see what you're saying.
And
they're replacing that with other things.
They're trying to make the point like love in and of itself is useless unless it goes, unless it does something.
Yeah.
And that's true. It's absolutely true. And I'm kind of playing on that. Like, love is a noun that's spelt G-O-D. Like, it's not enough to just say love is whatever it is, unless you're saying it's God and God is love and this is what love does and this is why, and it moves you to action.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And even more so now, like the time that we live in, it is easy to sit in your church on Sunday morning and make that your Christianity and make that what it looks like to follow Jesus and take your selfies while you're handing some homeless guy a McDonald's bag. And it's hard to engage in things that are going to cost you. And there's a lot of people that do it, but at the end of the day, what are you doing that impacts and changes things and communicates God to people? Because love doesn't matter if it's not God. Like, I can love my wife, but if I'm not loving my wife for the glory of God, and if I'm not loving my wife to point her to God, if I'm not loving my wife to point myself to God, or to point my kids to God, or to invite people into this kingdom where healing and wholeness takes place, it doesn't matter. It's good. It's good. Love is good, but it's not God. And I know a lot of people that love really well and they don't have God, and there's a threshold. And how much more if God was involved in that? If the end game was not even the end game, the beginning game, the end game, in the middle of the game was God. God is here, and that's what drives this love. So.
And what and in the very end of this, it says love has to be more than just a mere action or chemical reaction that provokes feelings. It has to be more than just something we associate with God in text and abandon in practice. It's more than. And it says this fundamental disconnection is a huge part of how the Israelites understood and related to God. And I think you're hitting it around the head. And I do think about, even when Jesus is like being taken to his crucifixion and people are, yelling, spitting, like whatever. What if one person just said, "Stop, what are you doing? Look what all he's done." It's like you could have just taken one person to stop that. But I mean, ultimately, it was his.
Jesus might have been like, no. This is important.
Yeah, it's good. But
I mean, he did it with Peter. Peter's like, "You're not going to die," and he was like, "Go behind me."
Which was that would have been eye-opening for sure. But we got to think about like when we see things that are wrong, especially when we're talking about culture now, is we need to be the person who goes, "Wait, hold up. This is not right. This is not what God's love is." And
like how much does it not matter if you walk up and you're like, you see suffering and you're like, "Hey, you know what, brother? God is love, and He loves you." And then you walked away. What are you doing? Like, what does that do? Nothing. It does nothing. It doesn't matter. It's lip service. Call it what you want. It doesn't matter. It's just something that you read, and you clearly don't understand what it means.
Yeah, exactly. Well, why don't we do this? Chapter 1. So much obviously to unpack. We only unpacked a portion of it, but can you give us an overall just thought of God is love?
Yeah. So I think just understanding. So for chapter 1, just understanding that the very thing that makes up and drives literally everything God does is love. This desire to recognize and meet needs for no reason except that He's love. That's it.
Yeah.
And it's the thing as Christians that we should understand, that when the entire rest of this book and the rest of our life works on this premise that if we're to love each other and if we're to love God and if we're to love our neighbor, that it has to be practical, it has to be an action that is played out of this understanding that I'm going to accurately estimate your need, I'm going to adequately supply for that need, and then I'm without expectation, because God loves you, because that's how He functions and that's who He is, and that's the thing that drives me, so that I can drive you toward Him. And that's it. Like, that's chapter 1.
Yeah.
And then hopefully it sets up the rest of the book for that purpose. And I try and tie it back to it anytime I talk about, hey, Jesus did this and Jesus did that. Look, accurate estimate, adequate supply, no expectation. Well, so.
No, that's great. And that's definitely, I think, a quote that I'm going to be highlighting and circling in this book is kind of going, okay, that this is the theme. This is the theme of what we want to do here. So, well, awesome. Well, hey, next time we're going over chapter 2. We're almost halfway through the book. No, I'm just joking. The law and love. You're not going to want to miss out on this one. And that's our show for today. We wanted to thank you. Yeah,
I just wanted to. So Father's Day is coming up. I did put the book starting this past Sunday on June 7th for the next 2 weeks, ending on June 21st, which is Father's Day.
Yeah.
It's on sale, and I think it's on. I'm going to say it's on sale for 10% off the cover price, but it might be 20.
Yeah.
I think it's 20% off the cover price.
I think it's 20%. Yeah.
And so. That started this past Sunday. It's currently on sale. So you can get it off of, you can go to 3commandbooks.com, and there's a link down at the bottom that says ink, order a signed copy.
Okay.
And click that one and it'll take you to the sales page for.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, yeah.
You don't have to put a code in. It's just on sale.
It's just on there, yeah. You don't have to put, like, Bruce is awesome as which you are.
That'll be my code.
Well, we want to thank you so much for joining us, and definitely make sure you connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We would love to hear from what you think about the podcast, but also what questions do you have for us and for Bruce. We'll be answering these questions as we go along. I don't think there was any questions this last
I didn't see any.
But we will be posting it.
Yeah. Well, since we're kind of a couple weeks behind, we'll probably answer it on social media more than anything. Maybe if it's a really good one, we'll address it on here, but it'll just be a little bit lag. Yeah, absolutely. And definitely to be sending in those questions. But again, thank you for listening, and we will be seeing you next time. Thank you so much, Bruce, for your time. And hey, thanks.
We'll have a good night.
Yep, see you later.
Thank you for listening to Fold and Share Theology. You can follow Bruce on multiple social media platforms at bpags2, as well as Justin Mercier on Instagram at justinmercier13. Additionally, you can check us out on Facebook and Instagram at Fold and Share Theology. Until then, keep unfolding God's Word each and every day.